Good morning, Bucknutters. Welcome to the Bucknuts Morning Five here on Monday, June 28th, 2021. I am Dave Biddle flying solo on this edition. I have been off for the last 2 weeks, and I have missed a lot, it looks like, especially when it comes to recruiting. Let's get into some of the high points. We'll start right at the top with JT Tuimoloau. Brandon Huffman is all over this. He's the only one that has a direct line to JTT, and he's been doing a bang-up job for months on this recruitment, years maybe, and it looks like it's going to happen this week. It looks like it's down to Ohio State and Oregon, as I'm sure most of you know. JTT canceled his visit to Alabama, which was huge news. When I saw that, I was really surprised. I thought, you know, as you guys know from listening to what I've said on the show, I was concerned that the Bama had the last visit, and I was concerned that he was going to commit to Alabama. Well, that's not a possibility any longer. It looks like he's going to be a Buckeye. It's not a sure thing. You know, Brandon Huffman has his crystal ball on the Buckeyes, which is huge. Bill Kurelic has never changed. He has his crystal ball on the Buckeyes. Could happen as early as maybe this Wednesday. We'll see. I mean, JTT's keeping it close to the vest, but I do expect something's going to happen this week, and it looks like he's going to be a Buckeye. So hopefully we'll have some good news for you midweek on JTT. Speaking of good news, Jaheim Singletary took his official visit to Ohio State this past weekend. He's, of course, the five-star corner from Florida who has been committed to Ohio State for a while. And there was some concern maybe he was a not quite a solid commitment. Well, if you believe what he says, he loved his visit, and he is shutting it down. He is fully committed to the Buckeyes, so that's great news. The Buckeyes are going to hold on to five-star corner Jaheim Singletary, who's ranked as the second-best player in the Buckeyes class, behind only Quinn Ewers, the quarterback, who has the perfect rating. So holding on to Jaheim Singletary, absolutely a must, and it looks like Kerry Combs and the Buckeyes did everything they needed to do on his official visit, and he says he's going to shut it down, and he is not officially, but he is going to be a Buckeye, it looks like. So that's great news again for this excellent 2022 class. It just keeps getting better and better and better. I do want to, I guess this is kind of recruiting because this is somebody in the transfer portal. I want to move away from recruiting just for a second, talk about Pele Gaetiote. I know many of you are wondering what is going on with Pele. He's in the Ohio State's directory as a student. What is going on? Why has he not announced that he's going to be playing football for the Buckeyes this year? Well, turns out this is ridiculous. I'm sure all of you are going to be mad when you hear this. This makes me a little angry as well because it's so stupid. Since he entered his name in the portal before they changed the rule where you don't have to have a waiver to sit out a year, he might not be grandfathered in with the new rule. They might make him still use the old rule because he put his name in the portal before they changed the rule that young men did not have to sit out a year before transferring. They didn't have to get a waiver from their previous school or whatever, or from the NCAA. And I find that ridiculous. They've changed the rule just because he put his name in like a week or two before the rule changed. He didn't know that rule was going to change. They shouldn't penalize him. Now, I do think it's going to work out. He's going to be a Buckeye. I think they're going to work this out. It's just ridiculous that he has to jump through these hoops when every other kid across the nation who wants to transfer, Jamison Williams, when he transferred to Alabama, he could just transfer to Alabama. He didn't need a waiver. You know, even guys are transferring from one SEC school to another with Henry To'oTo'o. They waived their rule. So if Pele has to sit out, that would be absolutely ridiculous. I don't think it's going to come to that, but if you're wondering why has nothing been made official, now you know it's because he needs this ridiculous waiver in order to become a Buckeye. Well, one guy who became a Buckeye when I was gone is Dallin Hayden, running back Dallin Hayden, ranked as the number 21 running back in the country, the number 206 player overall in the country. And it sounds like his rating is just going to go up, that he is underrated, even though he's still rated as a high 4-star recruit, you know, right knocking on the door to be a top 200 overall player in the country. Sounds like his rating is going to go up. I really love this. Dallin Hayden, 5'11", 195 pounds. You know, he runs bigger than his size, and he's got tons of speed, a kid from Memphis. And I really like this kid, especially when the Buckeyes cleaned up with recruiting at running back in the 2021 class. It wasn't going to be easy in 2022 to get the top running backs to commit to the Buckeyes because they know they just landed Travion Henderson, the number 1 running back in the country. They know they landed Evan Pryor, you know, the number 2 all-purpose back in the country, who's going to be a running back for the Buckeyes, of course. So it wasn't going to be easy to land even a high 4-star, and they did it with Dallin Hayden, and I'm really happy about that Dallin Hayden is going to be a Buckeye. Now, when I look at this 2022 class, it's tremendous. Obviously, it's the number one class in the country, keeps getting better and better and better. And it doesn't look like they're going to lose anybody who's committed, like Jaheim Singletary, as we talked about earlier. So I love this class. The one hole I see right now is they only have one offensive lineman, and it's still very early, and he's a good one. Tegra Tishabola, and I'm sorry if I'm messing his name up there. We'll just go with Tegra. And I think there's no doubt they're also going to land Emil Wagner from Wayne. So those are the two top offensive linemen in the state of Ohio. Emil Wagner, the number one offensive lineman in the state of Ohio. Tegra, the number two. They already land Tegra. They're going to land Emil Wagner. So that'll give them two. I think they need at least two more, maybe three. And they're in on a lot of good ones. Let's say they get Emil Wagner, and that'll give them two in the class. A bunch of guys they're in on, like Zach Rice, number one offensive tackle in the country out of Lynchburg, Virginia. Tyler Booker, the number 5 offensive tackle from IMG Academy. Joe Brunner, number 7 offensive tackle, kid out of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Tell you, when's the last time Ohio State beat out Wisconsin for an offensive lineman from the state of Wisconsin? That'd be interesting if that happens. Cam Dewberry, the number 10 offensive tackle in the country, young man from Humble, Texas. That sounds familiar. That's the same hometown as David Boston, Humble, Texas. Cam Dewberry. And the Buckeyes have recruited the state of Texas really, really, really well the last few years. So that's one to keep an eye on. Emil Wagner is ranked as the number 12 offensive lineman in the country. And then Julian Armella is another one I want to mention, the number 14 offensive tackle in the country. He's from the somewhat Ohio State pipeline of St. Thomas Aquinas there in Fort Lauderdale. So I think if they get Wagner, they need to land 2 or 3 more guys and get 4 or 5 in this class. And hopefully they can get that done, because that's the one thing I look at this class right now. You're like, okay, this class is phenomenal. Where can it be better? Certainly the offensive line is where it can be better. One guy who's helping make this class better and better, not just from him being in it, CJ Hicks, 5-star linebacker, Kettering Alter in the Dayton area where I grew up. And it's cool to see kids from the Dayton area become Buckeyes. I mean, when's the last time a kid from Dayton that the Buckeyes won and they didn't get? I mean, when there's a kid from Dayton, and Jackson Carmen was closer to Cincinnati than he was Dayton. He was, kind of halfway between, but closer to Cincinnati than Dayton for sure. I'm talking about a kid from Dayton or one of the suburbs of Dayton. Like, it's just an Ohio State hotbed. And I can't remember the last time that they wanted somebody from the Dayton area and they didn't get him. I'm sure I'm forgetting somebody. You guys are going to point it out, but CJ Hicks has never wavered. And what I love about CJ Hicks, other than he's a tremendous linebacker, 5-star linebacker, he is out here recruiting for the Buckeyes. He is doing work, and I love that. I love his game, and I love the type of young man he is, and he's just an absolute natural leader, and he is helping the Buckeyes recruit. And when he's on campus, when he's just on social media with some of these guys, he is doing everything he can to help make this 2022 class even better than what it already is. Hey, and same deal for Quinn Ewers. Quinn Ewers is doing great stuff too. Again, Quinn Ewers of the perfect 100% rating, the only perfect rating in 24/7 sports history. That's pretty nice. The most important position on the field, quarterback, and the highest rating you could possibly give a player. So Quinn Ewers is out here, and he's not wavering at all. You don't have to worry about, is he looking around? He's 100% Buckeye. And when you have someone with his status, being the number 1 recruit in the country, and he's a quarterback, he's charismatic. I mean, that carries a lot of weight when you got guys like Quinn Ewers and CJ Hicks, who all these recruits respect, going out of their way to get guys to become Buckeyes. I mean, that's huge. You absolutely have to have everything Ohio State has in place with facilities, coaches, Mark Pantoni, his support staff, everything, winning, culture, tradition, all of that. But you also need the current commits to help recruit. And it goes back to, Justin Zwick is the example I use, that excellent 2002 class, Tressel's second class, really his first class. And yeah, Justin Zwick ended up not being, a great quarterback at Ohio State, but he helped put that class together. He was, other than Tressel and his staff, Justin Zwick was just as important as anybody as putting that class together. And that was a tremendous class back in 2002. Finished number 2 in the country to Texas in the recruiting rankings. That's one thing Ohio State always seems to do when they have great classes. They finish number 2. I'm perfectly fine with that. Urban had a couple of number 2 classes that were off the charts. If they re-ranked them, would have been the number 1 class. 2013 and 2017. Those are classes that were tremendous, and going back to 2002. And this past year at Ohio State, 2021, they finished number 2 in the country. So it seems to happen a lot at Ohio State. Yeah, it'd be nice to win the mythical recruiting national championship, but give me these number 2 classes that turn out to be the best in the country. All right, I want to close the show talking about Mark Pantoni. We've had some interesting stories on the site regarding him recently, and I find it very interesting, his comments regarding the importance of camps and how that juxtaposes with the importance of breaking down film of these prospects. When you're evaluating a recruit, what's the most important thing? And that's a question that Pantoni was asked. And he made it clear that, listen, camps are very important, like very important, extremely important, but nothing tops game film. Game film is paramount. And we're not talking about highlight films here. We're not talking, when Mark Pantoni sits down and evaluates a kid, he doesn't pop on his 10 best plays or his 20 best plays that were sent to him by his third uncle. He's putting in a game tape and watching every play that young man participates in during the game. He's not watching every play. If that kid doesn't play defense, he's only offense, or vice versa. Or if he leaves the field, he's not watching every play, but he's watching every play where that young man's on the field, every play. So don't get, we had a little discussion on the board yesterday, don't get confused with highlight films and actual game tape. Game tape is paramount. Now, as Mark Pantoni said, still camps are huge because, especially, let's say he used a great example of a lineman. Let's say you're scouting a lineman, you're breaking down his film, and he looks good, but you don't know the level of competition. And he's out there at about 250 pounds. That's what his weight was at that time. And he's telling you, well, hey, man, I'm up to 285 now. Well, they need to see that. They need to see that in person. How does he move at that 285? So if you're impressed with him at 250, but you're thinking he needs to add weight, then he comes and shows on your campus that, hey, I've added this weight. I still move as well or even better. I've gotten a lot stronger. Then that would be something that would enhance what they've noticed from the game film. There's also times when, a kid will come and he just, for some reason, just doesn't in person look like anything of what they expected. And maybe the level of competition wasn't as good as what they thought. They know when they're watching film, they have a good idea what the level of competition is. They're not going in completely blindfolded here, but still, there's still, going to be some times where they're not quite sure about the level of competition. So it can work both ways, where they really like a kid on film, but then he shows up at the camp. They're like, maybe his level of competition wasn't as good as we thought, this and that. But I will say this, I use the NFL example a lot. Teams like the Bengals, who seem like they put a lot more emphasis on like the combine and pro days than they do a young man's game film in college. I use John Ross as an example. I know he had one of the fastest 40 times ever at the combine. It was 4.2 something a few years ago. Bengals took him 9th overall. Guy is afraid to go over the middle. He has terrible hands. Oh, but he runs like a track star. Let's take him 9th overall. It's ridiculous. You got to look at the film. Film is paramount. Camps and pro days and all that, combines are important, but film is paramount. It was interesting to hear Mark Pantoni talk about that. So I encourage you to get on our site and read that story from Mark Pantoni, and just he talks about all the other stuff that was going on this month. I mean, they hosted so many recruits. I mean, probably over 1,000 when you include unofficial visits and camps. And then I think close to 200 official visits this month alone. This is the final weekend, so they can actually come up for air now. Mark Pantoni and his staff, which Mark Pantoni is the best at what he does. And he's put together a phenomenal staff too. And I love how Ryan Day is just like, trust him 100%. Why wouldn't you? Urban did too. That's why I was a little worried Urban was going to take Pantoni with him to the Jags. I don't know if Pantoni would have left. I don't know. I don't know. That'd be a question someone would have to ask him, but I'm just glad he's not leaving, put it that way. So we'll have another story on Mark Pantoni on the site later today, just talking about some more of his philosophies when it comes to recruiting and, when they offer guys, why they like to do official visits in June as opposed to during the season. Because Dabo Swinney at Clemson has a completely different philosophy. He didn't host any official visits this month. None. Clemson had 0 official visits. They're doing them all during the game days, which is, you could see arguments on both sides of the fence. Pantoni made a great point, though. When you have these kids here in June, you spend 100% of your time with them. There's no distractions. The coaches aren't getting ready for a game, which has to take precedent. I mean, if you're getting ready for a game, you're Ryan Day. The one thing you cannot do is lose that game. I mean, yeah, you don't want to lose a recruit either, but you cannot lose that game. And even if you're trying to give the recruit as much love as you can, you're not going to be able to do that when you're prepping for a game. And it also makes it tougher for the kids to get there because they are playing football Friday nights and they have to catch a plane first thing Saturday morning. I'm just parroting what Mark Pantoni said here. It feels like I'm just reading verbatim what he said in the story that I wrote yesterday. But it's very interesting. I like Pantoni's philosophy a lot better than Dabo's here because, yeah, the game day experience is really good. But keep in mind, and Pantoni pointed this out, just because these kids take official visits to Ohio State in June, they can still come back for an unofficial visit for a game day and get that experience. But this way they get, all of the attention spent on them during their official visit in June. They get to come back, see a game, get that atmosphere. But, then the coaches don't have to be worried about like, oh, we've got to spend all this time with this recruit, even though we're trying to do a thing called win a college football game. So I really like what Pantoni's doing, how they loaded up in June. They did as many as they could in June. and it really frees up the season to focus on the season while still doing what you need to do in recruiting. But I love getting this head start, and I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens if Clemson's going to, kind of regret what they did, and Ohio State's going to be like, yeah, too bad. You should have followed our lead. It's going to be interesting to see how it turns out. Or maybe Clemson will say, see, we know what we were doing. We have the better class. I tend to think it's going to be really tough for Clemson to catch Ohio State. Maybe anybody else. I think who knows? Alabama, as soon as we say this is going to be the year Ohio State finishes with the number one class, Alabama will find a way to catch them in the last week or something. But regardless, this is going to be a tremendous 2022 class, and I'm pretty fired up about it. Also fired up about being back in the saddle. This has been a fun Bucknuts Morning 5. Thank you for flying on this solo journey with me. I hope everyone has a great day. Let's hear that Buckeye swag, best damn band in the land.